Hello, my friends and colleagues. What if I was to tell you that the most important thing you'll bring to work today isn't your strategic plan or your key performance indicators, but instead what's in your heart? Today, we're going to explore how leaders need to look inward so that they can be authentic for their teams and lead from a place where they can also acknowledge the humanity of all their team members. This allows people to get aligned and to have better results. Last time I had a quote for you from Charles Dickens. This time I have a quote from a Japanese novelist named Haruki Murakami, and hopefully I said that right. This is his novel that's called 1Q84. It's kind of a fantasy, but also a magical realism type novel where it appears to be the real world, but unusual things happen. He uses that framework to explore human nature. So he's talking about some of his characters, and they're trying to know themselves so they can figure out what to do with their lives. And the quote is, "There is nothing in this world that never takes a step out of a person's heart." I'm going to read it again. There is nothing in this world that never takes a step out of a person's heart. There are so many ways you can interpret this. Does it mean that we're creating our own reality because everything that's in our hearts is stepping out and creating that reality? Does it mean that we need to pay attention to what's in our heart so that we can be honest about how we're feeling that day, or so we don't surprise ourselves with a reaction that we don't even know where it came from because we're cut off from our inner selves? There's so many different ways you could look at that. I thought it was fascinating, and I thought the way we could apply it to work is that that's true for everybody. That's true for you as a leader, and it's true for all your team members. We probably all can think of an instance where we were maybe having a fairly routine meeting and we're discussing how we're doing on projects or something like that, and somebody just goes off, just loses it, and you're thinking to yourself, that's not like them, what's going on? And then you talk to them later and you find out, something happened in their lives. They're upset about something. They have a challenge with their child or their parent or whatever it is. And so these things will come out. And if we don't allow ourselves a moment to look in our hearts, they will often act out in ways. And I'll give you an example from my personal life. We have a dear family friend who was who had a horrible accident, and they're in a severe condition in the hospital. And I've been visiting, hearing about how they're doing. And then I realized yesterday when I was working that I was on the verge of tears. And I'm like, what in the world is going on with me? I realized I was carrying my sadness, my grief, my fear of how this will turn out. I was carrying it all so tightly that I couldn't really give my full self to my work. I needed to take a step back, think deeply and reflect on this situation, allow myself to have the feelings, and then I could come back to my work. Now, I was fortunate that I wasn't like in front of a group of people and feeling like I was losing it. But we imagine those kind of things. Everybody doesn't have maybe something that huge going on, but it is something that we have to realize about ourselves. So I'm going to give you some tips of how you can prepare your heart for your meeting so that what steps out of your heart, according to Murakami, what's stepping out is something you want to be seen and shared with your teams. So first of all, before maybe you're going to have a big all hands or you're going to do a strategic session, make sure you've reflected. Like, am I feeling sad today because I have a family friend who's in the hospital? Am I feeling stressed about something? What am I feeling? So I can own that feeling, acknowledge it, and then kind of set it aside for the meeting that's ahead of you so you don't have an inadvertent reaction because of something you're carrying and not acknowledging. Also, remember to nurture and encourage your glue employees. That was from a previous video. There's the ones who know how to encourage and support the group. Make sure your care feeding of them is happening. And lead with authentic gratitude. You can share as a leader. I'm feeling sad today because of whatever was going on, and thank people for their patience and kindness. I had a case once when my uncle, who was 101, passed away, and a number of people on my team spent some time talking with me, processing that about his legacy, his life, and what he meant to me. And I was able to then authentically thank them for what they had offered to me, and then I could be there for them. So I'd like you to think about these things and share below cases where you looked in your heart, and because you spent the time looking at your heart, you were able to be a better leader. Talk to you next time.